Oh, the music started.
Welcome to the Simple Youth Ministry Podcast. This live recording is brought to you by Doug Fields, Josh Griffin, Natalie Johnson, and Matt McGill.
And Propel.
This feast for the ears has just enough youth ministry so you don't feel guilty for listening. Be warned, this podcast is not for the faint of heart or the mentally weak. Since that describes most of humanity, you may want to go ahead and turn it off right now. Enjoy.
I think that'll be on. Oh, goodness.
Oh, bell.
There's the bell.
All right, everybody.
Oh, man.
Hey. Episode 45.
Done.
Yeah.
Doug
We
Fields here with
apologize.
Josh,
Hi.
Jake, and Matthew McGill. Queen Natalie has had to switch roles for a week because, one, she doesn't have youth ministry failure stories.
She's perfect.
And Nadeem and Andy are out sick or something.
Right.
And
Yes.
Nadeem's I thought we said Andy's traveling.
Andy's traveling.
Andy's
Nadeem is
traveling.
out sick today. Andy is in
yes.
Alabama.
which would make me not feel good.
Yeah. Have fun. Have
Yeah,
fun there.
Andy, way to go. And this is our failure story show.
Oh, yeah.
Failure show.
This
right
actually,
here.
this podcast
That's a
is
great
pretty much
setup, yeah.
our failure story.
Just watch a few episodes.
Josh, welcome back.
Unbelievable. Thank you.
Episode 45.
Yes.
Should we start making plans for episode 50?
Ooh.
50 being like a landmark.
I don't know. We
Episode?
did a 1 year show and it was kind of average.
Yeah, we should.
All right,
I'm
well-
always up for another cake.
I
So
thought the 1 year show was great.
Was it?
I thought 43 might have been our best.
You know what
I
might be
think
sweet is
43
to do it on the road at Wiener Schnitzel.
I agree.
We always suggest that when never
Oh.
goes down.
Yeah.
Because
I've
I'm there
never
too much,
suggested it.
and the guy, I don't think he would dig
wouldn't
that.
fly with it.
No.
But what if we went at like 2 in the afternoon when nobody's...
What if
at
we went to
Wiener
another Wiener Schnitzel rather than
Ooh,
the
I
one
like
that
it.
I hang out at? Matt has a new shirt for those of you who are watching by video, and
Doug's favorite. He's
I-
only made fun of it 10 times today.
no, it's very tight
He's
fitting.
just trying to
haven't
land
made
on
fun
a
of it?
bit.
I wondered if you were lifting because
Ooh.
it just looks
'Cause
like
that's
it.
something I do a lot.
Hey, Josh, welcome back. You were
Thanks.
where last week?
I was in Pennsylvania speaking at a youth conference
Okay,
with a bunch of
Oh,
new friends.
yes.
we got a couple emails. Let's start
And,
here.
Yeah, people were emailing in after a particular session that I gave, and a guy comes up to me and goes, I already emailed the podcast about what just happened.
And you hadn't listened to it yet?
No.
No.
So I was very excited about that.
Says, I missed you so much. I just wanted to let you know. This is from Albert Alcorn, North Valley Christian Fellowship.
Double ow.
This is
emailer.
not because Doug told me to. I think you're semi-funny the majority of the time.
So kinda and all the
Semi
majority?
and the majority.
I don't know. Thanks.
Especially
for that, I
when you
think.
try to tack on your opinion to the discussion late in the game. Which is a nice change to Matt's depressed attitude the last couple
Oh,
of weeks.
Matt.
He was slumped over his computer in the last episode. It just made me sad.
Oh,
Matt,
man.
I was just going to
don't
close
slouch.
it.
Huh?
I was just going to close it.
But you were slumped over. Have you been sad in the last couple weeks?
I actually can't think of a time when I'm not sad.
Wah, wah.
Well, a
got colon
couple
cancer.
weeks ago, we had a visitor in the room. You said afterwards what? I was off my game. Having somebody new in the room kind of freaked me out a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I didn't like having someone in the room.
Okay, so from now on, nobody's allowed in the
No,
podcast.
but we've had people in the podcast.
Outta
and
here.
It's been great. I
Yeah.
mean, maybe that guy was
So
just
maybe
a loser.
Blair just actually cursed it.
No,
Poor
He
Blair.
brought
The guy,
the black
he was
magic
really
to the
nice.
show.
I don't know what it was.
Yeah, nice guy. He wrote a nice post about the show. He loved
Oh,
it.
really?
So,
I didn't
yeah.
see that.
Yeah, go
Where
to the
is that?
episode 43 page. And
On this thing called the internet.
Albert says, I'm trying to start a podcast for our youth ministry here in the San Jose area. Any tips? Don't be depressed. All
there
right.
you go.
Hey, there's another one, Josh, from Joey. That's all it says. Your
Joey.
absence caused a huge void, and Jake could not fill it no matter how hard he tried.
That's
No.
a lie.
I hope you will be back soon. May the force be with you.
Oh, I do like that one though. Well,
Good-
see, you
good
kind of
force
set me
setup.
up last show because I listened to it on the airplane coming
Oh,
home, and I kind of
I'm
heard
sad.
that you were, send Josh.
Josh,
in
the
now.
show just wasn't the same without. I mean, we got, we
See, I
got
know
many.
these are
I'm
scams.
only reading a few.
These are scams. I
The
understand.
show just wasn't the same without you. You have to make it back to the show this week because it seemed to lack something. Maybe it was your sarcasm.
Oh,
I don't know.
Not one of my spiritual guests.
That's
Either
weird.
way,
You're not very
to hear you
sarcastic.
back next week. That was from
Is that
Brandon
sarcastic?
in Illinois. One more. Josh, you were so missed. I really like Jake and think he tried really hard to do you justice by filling in for you. Though he did well, he
Think
can
again.
never be you. Hurry back, man. Try not to go anywhere too often, or at least maybe get the Survivor guy to fill in sometimes.
Oh, that's a little old school reference.
That was
Austin.
That was
I wish
Chuck.
this bit would have. If Josh wouldn't have listened, I really would have loved this bit.
It would have been fun because I would.
Because here's what it would have been. Josh is such a nice guy. He would have felt really bad afterwards and been like, Jake, man, I'm really sorry the people ripped on you about. Oh man.
But now I know that they're actually ripping on me.
Okay,
And
before
so
we get
I'm okay
into
with that.
before we get into our failure stories,
Okay.
this is one from Jonathan Whitmer,
Jonathan Whitmer, he sounds familiar.
Mount
Jonathan
Calvary
Whit.
Church, Elizabethtown, Pennsylvania.
Oh, like the
This
movie.
dude was at the show at the conference thing I was just at.
You guys got to ask Josh about this on the podcast. I was attending Impact 2007 in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, where Josh was the MC.
Impact.
He's doing a great job, really funny, but this morning, in the morning session, he was playing the game of I want a ...
Oh my goodness.
and asked for a contact lens, and so a student ran up with a
This is
contact
unbelievable.
and gave it to him. Josh was commenting on how gross the contact was and asked how she was going to get it back in, and she said she was going to suck on it. And then Josh, in front of 1,100 people, says, "You're going to suck on a condom?"
Oh my goodness.
What happened there?
I have never been more embarrassed.
Oh.
Talk about a failure story.
I'm embarrassed right now.
Okay, let me
I
set
was
it up a little
embarrassed
bit.
reading
Let me
this.
set it up a
know.
little bit.
Well, let me just
That
finish
is
this guy's
unbelievable.
thing. He says, "I almost died, and so did Josh."
Oh yeah.
You got to ask him
I
about
did
it.
die.
I hope that he was going to. I hope he was not helping put together the new best sex ever curriculum. It could be dangerous.
Okay, so we're playing search and seizure, where you ask for an item in the crowd, and a student runs up
Which-
with that item.
we got
Just
that
by the
part of
way,
the
in
story.
the 2007 PC world, my wife has a seizure disorder, and I don't appreciate that game.
So we play search
does have a
and
seizure
bring me an
disorder.
item, and so anyhow, and I decided
What
to let
if
the
that's
kid.
one of the things that you called for? We need somebody up here with a seizure disorder, and they start running
Come
and
running
have
up
a
and then
seizure.
They fall
Prove
right
it.
there. So
Whoever shakes harder.
I
Take
shake
a
up the game a
Dilantin.
little bit, and I start having the kids who brought the last item mention the next item. So this kid says, "Contact," and I went, "Oh." I thought he said, in my mind, I'm going, "Oh, condom." That would have been so embarrassing if this kid, because that could be an item that you'd have in a
etched
wallet.
it in your
if you're-
brain.
So it was stuck in here, and then later on,
I like
it
to call that your
came-
random access memory.
It came out immediately in the worst possible moment, and
right.
never been
When
more
you said the
embarrassed in
word
my life.
"suck," that's a really
Yeah.
bad time.
It was
That's unbelievable.
Josh.
So
You're
it-
suck on a.
in the
Unbelievable.
in the great part of the story, the guy who was putting on the event, I mean, everyone just lost it, and everyone knew it was a mistake. It wasn't like I was trying to be edgy, because I don't have an edgy side. And he laughed, crying with laughter, and they invited me back next year, and blah blah blah. So
Josh, that is one of the greatest bloopers.
it was, and
That's
I,
almost one, like when you're talking with other youth workers, you can almost not even tell that, because even retelling it, it is so bad
Oh,
and
it's
visual.
so-
and
Oh yeah,
I
it's
cannot
over the
believe you said
line.
that.
It was so.
If it was my conference, I would have sent you home immediately.
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 I immediately went to the guy and said, "Listen, I will go right now." And he's just laughing. He's like, "No, don't worry about it. It was funny." He was very.
And did
very
you
good.
tell him the whole context where the guy came up?
Totally. And I
he's-
said, then it was then. I thought he said the wrong thing. And I was like, that would have been embarrassing. And then I
"How did
said
you
it.
recover in front of 1,000 plus?"
I honestly don't remember, but it was.
Do they have that on video? Did they video?
I
it?
actually made sure it was destroyed. In all seriousness.
And knowing what a sucker you are for laughs, did you go back to the condom well later?
Okay, so then I'm teaching my mind. I teach you. I did.
Man, this bit's not working. Hey, I know what'll go over.
So I'm in my
Condoms.
MySpace lecture later. I'm doing a little workshop, and this kid, and it's set up. There's 150 kids in there, and he's doing this, and I'm like, "What's wrong?" And he goes, "Oh, I got a problem with my condom." The whole room was.
So he's
I'm
pointing
like-
to his eye
and
for
he's-
those that are
oh,
listening.
if you're on the audio show, yeah, he's messing with his eye, And then he makes the contact condom joke.
Stupid kid. Did you
It's
kick him
kind of
right in the
Yeah, I
mouth?
kicked him right in the teeth, and then.
That is a great one.
So thank you,
Well.
Jonathan. We had lunch together, and he told me that he'd emailed in.
I think that's a perfect failure episode. We might just need to end the
Yep.
show right
Oh.
there.
Thanks
that is
It doesn't get any
unbelievable.
better than that.
I'm hearing this one for the first time. Had you heard it
I
already?
just heard a snippet of it last night.
Oh,
I
my
wish
because
I
it was
could have
starting
just
to
heard it
become
now.
legendary already in the.
Where? Like in the blog world?
I talked to Jan.
Well,
and
I
Jan
blogged
told
about
me.
it like 10% of what really happened. 'Cause
Yeah.
it's too big to. You can't say. suck a
Janet
condom.
couldn't hold it in last night. She had to tell us.
Yeah,
It was
I gotta
very
quit telling
funny.
her story. She kind of shares my good stories.
You know what I was
a
thinking?
stalker.
Janet would be great to have on the show every
That'd be
once in a while.
I think so.
Janet works in Saddleback. For those people that might not know.
Yeah, she
Works
doesn't
out
ever
out.
listen to this.
No,
She
doesn't
actually
even know
thinks
we're talking
she
about
thinks it's a total waste of time.
Which is the
Yep.
perfect reason to have her on.
Yeah.
it. Yeah, she would bring another layer of sarcasm to the show, though. Remember last week we talked a lot about humor.
Oh, and she runs all of your guys' lives, which is also another
yeah.
reason she'd have input.
Not my
Um,
Yeah,
And
me
Matt's
too.
wardrobe.
Tim Harwell, associate
well.
pastor of youth, Faith Baptist Church,
Hey, Tim.
Pesthigo, Wisconsin.
Oh, am I doing
Pesthigo.
the bell?
I'm sure I'm hacking that one.
Okay,
Pestigo?
all right.
Yeah, he said
You
episode
got a church?
on 43,
Pesthigo?
episode 43,
Okay.
pure gold.
Oh.
I had more fun watching this one than any I've watched, and I could not. The only reason I pulled this out was I could not remember
43.
why was 43 pure gold, or what was 43. I
It
was hoping it
good.
was the one you were gone.
No, it was the one with Blair that was here. Yeah, it's funny. Thanks. It was one with that Blair was here on, and it was good.
Oh,
it was one of my.
I don't remember that.
You good?
I'm feeling a little insecure.
No, it's the
that
one
was
you
the
read.
one I
It's
was
the
not
one-
here. No.
But you listened to it.
I listened to it.
It's the one you
And
listened
you
to.
control-
I listened
by
to it. Great.
listening.
If you're telling me I should feel confident because I listened to it, thank you.
All right,
Yeah.
how do we
We
start
knew
the
you were
failure
gonna
story,
listen.
McGill?
Oh.
Yes.
Do you want to start? Why don't you? Do you have a failure story of like when Josh was telling that story? I'm thinking, I'm not sure I've ever said anything that.
Yeah, there's mine. I mean, I didn't.
No,
That-
you made fun of a girl that had no hands.
Oh, that
That's
story's
way worse.
unbelievable.
All right, let's start with Doug's no-handed girl story.
Ah!
Trump the sucker
I
condom
love
right now.
this.
This is
story.
part of the PD.
It will not.
This is
It will not
classic.
trump suck a condom. By the way, it will
You're
not.
probably right.
Suck a condom. Everyone knows that that's a.
That is a
Slip of the
legitimate
tongue.
slip of the tongue.
This one's awesome. I could totally see myself doing the same move as this story.
Here we go.
All right, but this isn't. I've got my list of 5 like legitimate
Oh.
failures.
Oh.
These
Right.
are. This is a funny failure.
Okay.
Now, really, really quick, are we setting this up as like principles that we didn't follow, or moments where we just blew it, or could it be?
I
any
didn't
combination
I
of
didn't
the
do
elements?
moments where we just blew it because there's too many of those.
Right, like,
I
'cause
did.
the story
I
that
did
we just
like
had was a moment.
big time principles
Yeah,
of
yeah, me
this
too.
is stuff that I failed at that
Great.
taught me something new.
Super. That's what I did too. I
I
felt
didn't
like
have any
maybe
of those.
you never failed on principle.
I don't think so.
All right.
Here we go.
Well,
Because if I just was enacting all of our principles.
that I had already
Oh.
failed on 15
Yeah.
years
All right,
earlier.
let me set up Doug's story. He's got a mullet, and it's 1932. We fade in.
All right. So it's at Saddleback. I'm walking around on a Sunday morning. I'm greeting kids, and kids I don't know, I just reach out to shake their hand and how you doing, and I shake this girl's hand, and I think to myself that she's taking her pointer finger. What finger are we calling this?
Ah, that's
Pointer.
Pointer finger.
Index finger.
Pointer finger, and I'm thinking that
The one
she's
by your
like,
thumb.
for those of you that are watching, you can see that she's taking it and kind of rubbing the inside of my palm. Now, you guys are all too young, but in my era, in the 70s, when you would shake somebody's hand and you would take your index finger and you would rub their palm, it was a nonverbal symbol of flirtation.
In today's culture, you would lick them on the back of the neck.
Yeah.
Or ask
Something
them to suck a
subtle.
And this is
condom.
funny.
Go to the well. Go to the well.
See you next
Yeah,
week.
Let's leave that well.
Please.
So we don't have to edit the show. I'm already. Anyway, so when I tell this
Shaka
story in
Khan.
front of a bunch of youth workers, I say, if you're over 40, how many of you know what I'm talking about? And they all raise their hand. It was just, I don't know where it came from. I don't know if it was like a Happy Days deal with Richie Cunningham and the Fonz,
What's
but
Happy
something where he takes it.
Jump
And
the
so,
shark.
so I'm shaking her hand, and I feel her,
Doing that.
Rubbing
doing
your
my
palm.
palm there.
Yeah.
And I go, what are you doing? And I wanted to say, what are you doing? And I said, what are you doing? And I look at her hand, and she has like a finger and a half.
Oh.
And so my mind,
Not even enough for chopsticks.
Welcome back, everybody. We have just started the show over.
so I go,
I'm not sure why it's not
I
fun.
go, it's funny.
It's-
I go, what are you doing? And I see that she's got two fingers, and then instead of stopping, which would have been the smart thing to do, to stop and go, oh, what happened to your hand? I go, what are you doing? What are you? And I start pointing around. Hey, Joe, what are you doing? Timmy, what are you doing? I just kept moving on.
Trying
love
to
it.
recover.
Oh,
love
I was
that
so
story.
embarrassed.
Brilliant.
What are you doing?
What are you doing?
No
This is so good.
Yeah, that's one
That's
of
a
my
good failure story.
staple stories. Well, I've got my list of 5.
Okay.
All right.
Awesome.
Um,
Are you just going to focus on one person?
I don't
and
know. How do
all
we
of
want to
them?
do this? This is why we should sometimes talk before the
Prep
show.
the show. I think it'd be
Rotate
fun
and
to-
then rank, which is the worst failure.
Okay,
But
Matt, why don't you
wasn't
start?
There, I'll
Why don't-
start with my 5. Wasn't there something we were talking about with Josh when we said we got to stop because we were talking about it?
And then we wanted to save it for the show.
Yeah.
Was it the eHarmony?
Oh, it was the eHarmony. I'll write that down. We got to come back to eHarmony.
Yeah, we can save that. We've
Matt,
already had a lot of
memory.
fun.
Matt,
Good
you're
call
like
back,
an
Matt.
elephant.
Okay, Matt, do you
It
want to
was-
do?
I
Do
wanted
you want to
to
do
know.
all 5 of yours? Yeah, let's go ahead. Let's do
You're
all
the-
5 of yours.
I will do whatever.
I only brought
whatever
4.
you.
Yeah, everyone will stop listening to the show as soon as Matt's are done. But
Yeah, because I'm very depressed.
Because on principle alone.
no, just because
Yes.
you're the entertaining one.
I was gonna say I was gonna say number 1, Matt McGill Sports Instructionals.
You consider that a failure?
Let's give one away free this week.
That's
Let's digitize
definite-
one.
We've
Give
already
away.
given away the last one. Remember?
The
Or
law.
was that just a bit? Do we really have more?
No,
Yeah.
he said he's saying digitize one of the old school ones off video.
Yeah, and slap it up on
Oh,
the free
McGill, they
section.
are so funny.
'Cause
Why
you
is
can't
that
buy
a
them anymore,
failure?
They're out of print.
well,
Yeah.
I guess I was more just referring to some of them. Some of them were so horrible, like the roller skating one.
Well, for
and
those
the
of you that don't
bowling
know,
one.
Matt is a little bit large, and he would, for a youth ministry video, we would shoot these things called Matt McGill Sports Instructional Video, and they were just a little humor. I probably started on a Super Bowl Sunday one year, and it just became funny, and we just did them on a regular basis, and
And some
Matt
were
was
good and some-
brilliant.
Some were
Hockey-
absolutely brilliant.
Hockey was horrible. There was
But-
a bunch of them.
Hey,
Matt McGill
but
teaches
isn't let's be honest.
Cross country. Legendary.
Yeah, I still when I go to a
Legendary.
cross country match, cross country.
Yes.
To run,
Great line.
craw without purpose. But
Unbelievable.
let's be honest here.
Phil
When
Heyman
people
gets props
see
for that.
stuff, if you were to get the Matt McGill Sports Instructional Video that we used to sell just by demand, so many people wanted them, people would see 8 of them, and they'd go, "These are all unbelievable." Well, what they didn't see was the 8 that were average that we
Right.
just didn't put on. But that is a principle that just because
still put on there.
you see something or you hear somebody and you always compare yourself to that speaker or whatever. Well, that's the best one
Their
they've ever
A-game,
given.
yeah.
Well, and let me say this, Matt. Every student back in Michigan before I came out to Saddleback, every student knew who you were
Yeah.
because they had seen your videos and laughed to tears. I mean,
All right.
And you might
what's
say that
another?
was just laughter. That was laughter for Jesus.
that's
That
ministry
was
right
holy
there,
laughter.
man.
Yeah.
That is ministry.
I put on there just looking at the last 5 years of high school ministry. I probably should have spoke more. I got a cough. Turn my volume down for that. I'm sorry.
Wow, look at that edit.
No, I almost. I'm a little flimmy.
He's a little emotional today, guys. It's all right.
So I think I should have spoke more. I mean, part of it was just with the rotation, with you rotating out a little bit more, and with the rotating we had on the team. But I also think it hurt me politically at our church. I think that the elders never really realized that I was like the high school pastor for a couple years because I didn't really speak. So that was weird. This next one.
So the learning on that failure then is that you felt like it put you in a position, because you don't have to be a speaker to lead a ministry.
No, I don't think you have to be a speaker to lead a ministry. I think that what was the learning from that? Well, the learning from that is I think that it would have been, I could have led our ministry better had I been speaking more often. I think I could have gotten more, it would have been better resources wise, as far as on the picture of our whole church staff, I think it would have been better for maybe even our ministry students and stuff like that. So I just think that I probably should have spoke a little bit more. And actually, Jake was the one that kept saying that, because when he was on staff, I just kept saying, dude, it's okay. We got.
Well, there's a connection between the guy on stage teaching
Absolutely.
and the credibility, leadership, whatever, right or wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, we've somehow in the church attached leadership ability to how well a guy speaks or how often a guy, or I would say guy, but whatever.
Yeah. No, and it wasn't so much with our students or even with our volunteers. You know, I mean, like I felt like things happened pretty much the way I hoped they'd happen. So that was part of it. Another one which we definitely can't go into
Well,
without.
let me pause you on that one, because I think, I mean, I'm, you know, we're not debating failures or not. You see that as a failure.
Yeah.
I don't see that as a failure. Watching you in that setting, you were
Yeah.
operating out of your giftedness, and you are a great teacher. But in that larger setting, that you didn't necessarily love it. And if we talk about doing things in our sweet spot, that wasn't your sweet spot.
Yeah, but see, I
Because
don't
you tend
really.
to do things you really like to do. And you were such a great manager of people and motivator and organizer and administrator. And you get, you know, I just think the principle a lot of times when you say right or wrong that we
Yeah.
attach a speaker to a leader
Yeah.
type thing. I think what's right is people do express their gifts.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
in that sense, I understand why in our goofy culture there were some people
Yes.
who perceive, you know, they go Saddleback Church is built on Rick Warren being the leader speaker.
Right.
And so they take that and say that's what it should be like.
Right, that's
And I
the
think
measure
that's
of
limited
success.
thinking.
Yeah.
And I told those people that. I think that's limited thinking, that you would then evaluate Matt based on whether he is like Rick Warren. So anyway, that's I
Which I'm a lot like Rick Warren.
You are.
You
A
see
lot.
that as a failure. I don't see that as a failure.
Yeah. Number 3, I put on there just was some bad hires, which obviously you can't go into that because that's just not a fun thing to talk about and get personal. But I think over the years, in 11 years,
Why are you looking at me right now?
Jake was the one person I really regret hiring more than anybody else. No. And that's just, I mean, you anybody who does ministry for a long time and you end up getting to hire people, or you interview interns, you bring interns on, you know, you think they're great the first 10 times you talk to them, but
Yeah.
you know, it's impossible to really, really know, you know, what you're getting, if someone's going to be a fit and blah, blah, blah.
Well, and there aren't a lot of people who necessarily listen to us. I mean, there's a percentage, but I would say it's maybe a 10%er
Yeah.
that really in youth ministry has the opportunity to hire somebody. But that principle, the same would be true with volunteers.
Yeah,
Sure.
absolutely.
It's really hard to know. And for those that do get to hire,
Yeah.
you know, our principle has always been the ones we hire within. When you hire within, you are hiring a known entity.
Yeah, you know what you get as opposed to reaching
And that would
the
be
outside.
interesting,
Yeah.
Matt, to say the ones that we hired within, like a
Mhm.
Jake who grew up in our youth ministry, we go great hire. The ones that you didn't think you made good hires were those outside of our ministry.
Right.
Were they?
Well, I don't want to comment on
Okay.
that because I know that some of the people that still work there listen.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, I don't know. I haven't really thought about it that way.
That's right.
But when you say, does this apply to other people? I mean, the speaking thing, I mean, most people that are listening to this have to speak every week.
Right.
Yeah.
You know,
well, they don't
and
have
s-
to. Some of them actually shouldn't, in my opinion. Some of them shouldn't be speaking.
Well, that's for sure.
Their ministries would be more effective if they've got a guy at their church, you know, or a woman at their church
Sure.
that. Think about what the youth ministry you grew up at. We would go away to winter camp, and everybody in youth ministry at that time, again years ago,
Mhm.
would bring in the outside speaker. And I
Yeah.
never brought in the outside speaker. I would find there was a guy in our church named Guy Owen. He was a great speaker. And
Amateur comic.
He was a dad, but he was a great communicator. He had gone to seminary and was out of the ministry. And we would bring him in, and that way the kids saw him every week. So the point
Yeah, that's
is,
cool.
you don't have to speak to lead, and some people that are speaking
Totally.
probably shouldn't be. There's somebody better than them
Yeah.
who is not expressing their giftedness.
It's very interesting because I think when someone is hired, I think that's what a lot of churches will look for is who's the person who can get up and speak and teach and,
Yeah.
and bring it every week and be the face of the ministry.
Well, a lot of churches are stupid.
And that's probably terribly misguided.
Yeah.
I mean, the idea of someone sitting down listening to the show today going, should I be the communicator teacher of our student ministry? That's a very interesting thought at challenging people in this moment. I like it.
Well, it takes big leadership
Yeah.
to not feel like you have to be that person. And we tend to teach the way we've been taught. We tend to lead the way we've been led.
Mm-hmm.
So, we just reproduce mistakes from previous generations. So if it has always been you're the leader / teacher, then we're going to continue to go, that's
Yeah.
the way it's done.
That's what it is.
But you look at some churches like in North Point, their youth ministry, it's led by somebody who's a non-teacher. Willow for years their student ministry was led by non-teachers. So I mean, in my opinion, two churches that I think are pretty progressive
Yeah,
in terms
doing
of
it.
leadership.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not a size thing at that point, although those are large church examples, but they're progressive in terms of their leadership,
Yep.
and they're putting people
Yep.
in areas of giftedness.
Well, in Rock Harbor, it's the same. It's a local church by us. It's a pretty large church that's around us, but their senior pastor is not the guy who speaks every week.
It's very interesting.
So, but okay, the next one, which is definitely a failure, although very funny, and I don't really know how to put this delicately, other than we were on a road trip and somehow fecal matter fell into my pants. So I actually crapped my pants on a trip once, and it was very, very embarrassing.
Oh, it's the best trip of my life.
It was painful, and it was just a big mess for
The most
everybody.
painful part of it for me was that I wasn't
You
there.
weren't there.
You weren't on that trip?
No.
And you were there as a
I was
student?
there.
No, he was the
No,
leader.
it was
Oh, okay.
it was just like a couple years ago. Yeah.
Oh. This story, I've heard it so many times, it feels legendary, like it.
It happened decades ago.
Exactly like when
It
back in
it
the
did.
day.
It immediately
actually-
moved us
it
back
was
to
actually John
1974.
Bunyan. It happened to him, really. The Blue Ox.
I'm just, it's one of those stories that's so good, you assume it couldn't have been very recent because it's like timeless.
No,
Oh, that's
I'd like
awesome.
to push things to the limits.
Well,
and one of
there's-
those things is my bowels. And
There's a few things that people need to know. As part of the trip, it's all guys, and Matt and I, to make the guys tough, we ate pizza at every meal, breakfast,
Yes.
lunch, dinner. All we ate is pizza.
which I calculated at this point, it was like 970 slices of pizza we had eaten in 5 days.
It was awesome.
There was 20 of us. It was very nice.
But your
Some
stomach
of the
was.
fruitier guys were complaining.
It was
Actually,
awesome.
one of the leaders was like, kind of pulled me inside and said, "Hey, do you
A
think
couple
we
of the
could,
leaders, yeah.
do you think tomorrow we could?
Can I get like a salad? And we're like, oh my gosh,
fruit? Can I
yeah.
get some fruit?" So it was very funny. I'd say the other one too is I've been in a unique perspective of leaving Saddleback and getting to think about all that and then moving forward. But I think that we were just in a system there where I did bad cop a lot, good cop, bad cop. I think that I was bad cop, in a lot of situations, and not because the situation warranted it, but I think that I chose that, and so that was something where I'd say, okay, there's definitely a time to push when, like when we wanted to have a worship night with 300 kids and an administrator wanted to keep us out because 4 people were practicing. That's a time to push maybe and be a little bit of a bad cop, but which actually happened. But I just was thinking overall, maybe there was a little too much bad cop.
Interesting. The balance was messed up because we all have to be bad cops, but
Yes.
Not you, Griff. You're
now,
never bad.
I was going to say I have a little. I have
Well,
to,
you were with Natalie today.
Yeah.
that you
I
slayed me on
every
that
once
one.
in a while I'm
I
a
admit
bad
that
cop.
before I got here.
Oh yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, every once in a while I'm a bad cop.
Sorry,
One
Natalie.
time I got an email and it was copied to a bunch of people that shouldn't have been
Oh,
copied
yeah,
to,
I remember
and
that.
so I replied all, and I fired back like I would never fire. But every once in a while I have to be bad cop. But what you're saying is every once in a while you have to be good cop.
It was just too much. Yeah, it was like
Every
every
once
once
in
in
a
a while
while.
I decided to be
Well,
good
it also
cop.
became part of a little bit of your persona too.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. It was my
So a
persona.
failure is that you got labeled by one piece of who you were instead of.
I
really
didn't
the
get.
whole
I don't want
map.
to say get labeled.
Yeah, it
like
might
I
be a
was
little strong,
oppressed.
but-
I would say that was the path I chose, and it's one thing to be at a camp and to be funny on stage. To be bad cop there. That's that was actually just kind of funny and got everybody quiet, which was nice. But more just like as an office culture, dealing with other departments or dealing with mistakes and stuff like that.
Well, let's say that if you were to do a list of your gifts, mercy is not toward the top. And so when you would see
Brilliant.
when you would see dumb things happening, or
You would say
Yeah.
something.
yeah, there wasn't much of a timing filter. It was like
Yeah.
Which is good because I think most people are a little too far the other way, or a lot of people.
Exactly.
They would
Yeah,
just
a lot
see
of
it.
people with the gift of mercy, so to speak.
Yeah.
They just have
The weakness.
gift of gossip.
The weakness of mercy, maybe.
Yeah. So.
But I think we all see things, and maybe we would talk about it, but we wouldn't go fix it. And
Yeah.
you would fix it.
well, now that you're a senior pastor, let's take those learnings into your
Woo,
senior pastor.
I'll put those in the bank.
It'll grow spiritual interest.
How is the house church doing? How is Renovato?
How is Renovato?
What's the update? Do we want to give a quick update?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Because you always ask and we just move on to another subject. So,
Fair enough.
so there you go. Yeah.
Just moving
I
along.
always ask and move on to another subject.
Yeah. Go back to the podcast.
Let's do. I'm just gonna write down follow up on Matt's bitterness. Ask him about it.
There you go.
All right.
People are going to write in about that.
Yeah.
Yep, that's a little too dry humor right there.
Who wants to go next?
I will.
Okay.
5 of them. Number 1, not communicating with the senior pastor. I would say small church environment.
Right now, you
and-
don't talk to Rick that much.
No, very, very rarely. In my previous ministry, I
Did you
think that
see
was
him on
one.
Nightline the other night though?
I did. Does that count as communicating with?
Yeah.
Yeah,
You wrote him
so
an
much-
email on Larry King Live.
I see my senior pastor.
Yeah. No, but I think there's an element, and I don't know what that looks like in big church, but in a smaller church where there's a couple people on staff, internal communication is probably, it feels like sometimes it's one of the biggest weaknesses of churches and ministries, and that's why there is so much, you mentioned gossip and whatnot. And I think, I created an environment where it wasn't us versus them, but I knew there was a gap between the adult ministry and the youth ministry, and I was okay with it because I really liked what was happening with the youth ministry. And I think I don't think I was necessarily unsupportive, but I definitely wasn't super supportive with what was happening with the adult ministry.
So when you left, do you think your senior pastor was bummed or excited?
I would say excited.
Yeah.
Even though the student ministry was going great. I mean, all of the measures of success that church had for student ministry, they were being hit.
Yeah.
But there's just some cultural differences that we had, some philosophy differences. And so instead of, pushing back on those, I would just be like, cool, I understand your philosophy, and
Okay, that makes sense.
and
I was
I'm
just
not
about
going
ask.
to challenge it here, but I'm going to go do what I want back in the youth ministry. And it worked. But the reality of it is that there was a gap, and then, there was a perceived insubordination potentially. And I would say that was a failure. I would say if I could do it again, I wouldn't necessarily change anything about our student ministry, but I would fight for it and champion it, and I would communicate better with the.
Did you ever
people
compare
upstairs.
your youth ministry and the adult ministry to a certain rebel force and an empire?
Precisely. There was Lord Vader. I was young Luke.
And for those who are kind of new, because we get emails every week from people saying, "I just found your podcast," blah blah blah. Josh is a Star Wars
Nerd.
Fanatic.
Okay,
And
fanatic
because of
nerd.
that, on the links of this page, we will now link to my Star Wars website.
Ba, ba, ba,
Has the
ba, da,
has the largest
The largest.
fan base website.
You got it.
of
Yeah,
Star Wars
it's not
nerd.
like, oh, he just likes Star Wars. The guy is top-notch
Yep.
Star Wars master. Okay, go on.
Exactly. Okay, moving on
Force
right along.
.net.
So that's something that I would want to do over again, or I definitely learned.
So support him more by communicating better, because I was
Yes and
I was
yes.
seeing a
Yeah, I guess it
distinction
was
between
really two.
support and
I-
communicate.
It was one, and I've kind of now split it into two, which is great because then I can
Support.
cross off one of my other ones.
There
So
you go.
There's two of them right there, guys. Here's one. I came into a youth ministry that had a youth pastor before me, a good, loved youth pastor. I came in at 21, my first church, first ministry, just married, the whole bit, and didn't respect what had come before. I liked the guy. He was a good guy. Youth ministry was fine. But the church decided to not bring him on full-time, but to actually let him just continue to be a part-time or volunteer, and then bring me on full-time. And so
he was there as one of your volunteers?
So he was there as a volunteer.
Okay.
And so I would get excited about what we were doing next. And I'd be like, this is the greatest ever. Or, I don't know what we've done before, but this is going to be great. Or, remember that lame thing we did? And I was always like, and I don't even think I realized it at the time, but I was taking shots at what happened previously to raise my own credibility, to raise my own stock. I had to devalue their stock. So somewhere down the line, I'm sure it was an intervention of some kind, someone said, you know what? You're killing this guy. He's still in our church, and you are killing him.
How come he left?
The church didn't want to hire him as the youth pastor. So he was just like a volunteer,
So you were
kind of
pouring
part-time.
salt into open wounds.
Oh yeah, and unintentionally. I mean, not super naively. 21 through 23 probably of years of the years of my life, I was killing him and didn't even realize it. But I would say I don't think I'm alone in that. I think the temptation is when we step into a new ministry specifically. You want to be loved, and at least I'm a people pleaser too. So I want to please people, and
Totally.
That youth pastor just sent Doug an email on his phone.
apparently so. Okay, really quick as an aside.
No, but look who did.
Communicate with your senior pastor.
Oh, that's nice.
Wow, wow.
Andy Brazelton.
Wow.
See, isn't that?
I hope she BCC'd me. That's nice. Okay, so there you go. So there's number 3. Here, I'll do a combo one on this one. How about this? How about the bigger is better trend and the flash, not depth? So I kind of combine those into one, or maybe split them into 2. I don't know. But I think those are 2 big traps that I fell into. One is I always looked at the big and went, oh man, the measure of success and the culture of our church was grow, 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 bigger, bigger, bigger. And so I fell into that trap of hyping everything.
Burger.
Like I would plan an unbelievable event, and it was flashy and fun, and we had kids signed up to go. 100 kids are going to be there. I mean, it was a big deal. And then I would realize, like on the bus ride to the hockey game, that I didn't have a speaker for the event. So now that's not just a lack of administrative gifts. That's just putting the emphasis on the wrong thing. Like, I'm so excited about the event and reaching students.
And at what point did you realize you didn't have a speaker?
No, I'm exaggerating for a point.
Oh, okay. I was like, wait a minute. Were you on the bus and you had a kid?
It's
I don't know if you paused or not when he said, "No, that's not lack of administration." I said, well, what exactly is that?
It's beyond that.
all I'm
It's-
saying is that there's a trap that I hope I'm not alone in this. Maybe people can write in if they can relate to some of our failures.
That podcast is sent to you, Mr.
At podcasts, yes.
At
And-
makejoshfeelbetter.com.
No, I'm okay with it. This is a failure show. I'm trying to be. Well, you guys said bring some of your failures. I try to reach deep and find some
Way to
legitimate
reach
failures.
deep.
The scary
Way
stuff.
to reach deep. We only got one
I think
failure
that's cool.
story sent in.
No.
We got a bunch of emails this week, but only one failure story.
So my learning from that is I would flip it on its head. Instead of planning the flash, the hype, the big, the get students to it.
Make it boring but deep.
Exactly. I would go for the most lame. Let's go watch tennis. And
Let's
then-
just go to the adult service.
Dun, 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 dun. So anyway, that's
good.
That would be my thing. I would start opposite. I would start with what is the spiritual goal, and then
Yeah.
let's frame an event around that. But I think typical
That's very PDYM-esque of you.
typical youth ministry is let's plan an event and then let's tack Jesus onto it.
Right.
And I think my biggest learning early on, and I had multiple failure stories related to that, was I want to just flip it on its head and plan it the right way with what's most important.
With what matters most.
Bingo.
Now we're talking.
All right, one last one, bonus one, because I think I'm on like 7. I love what I do. I really genuinely love what I do. I love youth ministry. I love the whole bit. And so I think margin and balance is really one of the keys. And not because, it's just because I love it so much. I love what I do. I skip to work. I dance at the office. I love everything about
I've seen you dance.
That's
It's quite a beautiful sight.
exactly. So I would say margin and balance, not for anything other than I just enjoy it as much as any other part of my life. I don't dread going to work.
So
I
what's
love
the mistake?
So
That
I
you
think-
love
I think-
ministry.
it. Staying at shading time from
Workaholicisms.
yeah.
Oh.
There you go. There it is. Done.
All right,
In a
I'll
nutshell.
I'll go fast because I'm the young guy in here, and I'm sure people are anticipating Doug's. And if I go after
I
Doug,
don't even think you've made.
I
5
agree.
mistakes.
Go now.
I'll combine my first two, i.e., Josh, and say, in my first 3 years of doing youth ministry, I was very focused on. I was just overseeing weekend programming. I was very focused on that, and in the speed and pace of church world, I put I remember all the time working about my weekly schedule and never scheduled time to hang with students. And I feel like now in ministry, I feel like that is such a priority of mine. I get frustrated with myself thinking that, especially at a small group of guys that I didn't feel like I spent a good amount of time hanging with. And so for me, that's probably the most clear thing that comes to my mind, knowing that I had 8, 9 guys that I would meet with on a Wednesday night that, you know, they would be giving me a hard time about hanging out. And realistically, in my week, I didn't have the margin to hang out with them. It wasn't that I wasn't thinking about it. It wasn't that I wasn't aware of it. You know, I hear Field speak everywhere, and yet I was just going, I don't have the time, and I didn't value it to change that. So that was
Which is one of the reasons in this that I come to believe that I think volunteers can and oftentimes do have better youth ministry
yes,
than the person who's paid.
totally.
Because you're getting paid to create a product that kids want to come to. There's expectations on you as the youth pastor. You know, hey, if somebody comes and says, hey, Sunday morning is boring.
Right.
And our kids don't want to go there anymore. And we're tithing parents and elders
Right,
here that,
right.
you know, you've got pressure on you to create a product
Right.
and produce.
Right.
And that's why I think that a lot of times volunteers who don't have that pressure
Yeah.
can come in and have that hang time. And well, Andy
Yeah.
Brazelton.
Yes.
Andy Brazelton
That's
doesn't
true.
have any youth ministry pressure at Saddleback Church, and
Right.
he's a great volunteer.
Right.
Think about him as a volunteer.
Yeah.
He's got a job here at Simply Youth Ministry where he makes his own schedule. He can go at lunch and bring pizza to the guys at the local high school. He goes mountain bike riding with them. He
Right.
just, I mean,
Right. Right. It's true.
he has more really free time to
Yeah.
spend with kids than you do
Well,
as a full-time youth pastor.
Sure.
Yeah.
And that makes sense. And for me, I would agree with that. The only thing that I feel to bounce back on that a little bit is to say, we have a ton of students in our ministry. It was a big ministry, but my small group of guys, I knew them and I knew things they were going through, and there are times where they weren't a priority. And looking back on that, they clearly had to have been
Yeah.
over some stuff. So
Yeah.
that was one. I put just for Fields. We did a series once where the whole front end of our program was us pretending to do a news show on stage. And it was like 4 weeks long, and me and a guy, Robbie Helene, and Kathy, who were on staff at the time, had a news desk, and we'd open the service like it was we're live taping
And
a
you're the
news
producer.
show.
Yeah,
Yes,
it
I was
was
like the
cool,
producer. It was
though.
a great, I mean, in theory, awesome.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
every week, Fields would just give me this look like, so are we not going to do this again next week? Please tell me we're not doing this.
still remember
It was
this.
painful, and so we drudged through 4 weeks of it. I kept thinking, oh, this is going to take off at some point. Not even close.
But in your defense, it was one of the coolest ideas. I mean, like
I
you're a
agree.
studio
I
audience.
think you're taking that harder than
It's
I mean,
well, it's more of a funny bit that we laugh about,
yeah.
just as a funny.
I was going to say,
It's just
when
a
have you
bit
ever
that
seen
didn't
me in a
work.
program where I haven't been
yes, yes.
critical as to what could have done better.
Doug and I think alike when it comes to program criticism.
That's so funny.
But yeah, it was more for humor's sake than anything. Just to remember
Yeah.
a bit that
Yes.
didn't work well.
That's very funny.
I had a moment at our Ensenada missions trip in Mexico where we're trying to get, we've got a bunch of kids trying to go to bed, and we're trying to get kids to go to bed. And anyway, the short of the story is girls wouldn't shut up, and so I unzip their tent and throw dirt in their tent. It's a move I often use. It's a smart move because you can't punch kids, you can't kick kids really in the 21st century. Matt used to do it to me, but in a new era,
Yeah,
it's
now.
harder and harder to do that.
Yeah.
And for me, you can't do violence, but you throw dirt on them, it's great. It pisses them off, but you're like, I'm going to do it again if you keep doing it. So was a great equalizer. Anyway, I threw dirt in this girl's eye. She was crying and feeling bad, and I had this total moment where I was just hard about it. I'm like, go to bed. I was not gentle. I was not apologetic, and I went and laid down and like had a full recollection of me as a student. I was, as you guys will remember, but people listening don't know, I was the student for you guys who was always loud, who was always being told to shut up. And so I always promised I'd never be the youth leader who was
That was one of my favorite
the
things.
shut up guy. And I just had a harsh, sad moment laying in my tent in Mexico going,
Because that's who you had become.
I had.
Oh.
And it was bigger for me just in recognizing, oh man, in ministry sometimes there's things that you set out saying you don't want to do, little things along the way, and you go, oh, well, one, you give the guys ahead of you a little bit of grace and say, man, this is tough, and two, okay, man, if this is important, I want to be aware of that next time.
So
So
were her cries quieter than her talking?
her cries were quieter. It was great. She was very
Did
quiet.
you then go apologize that the next morning?
No,
or-
and I felt
Hey,
I'm
did
still
any
there.
dirt get in her condom?
A little
Cool.
bit. She was very, very
I thought we
hurt.
weren't going to go back to that well.
Well,
The well
it's a
had
good
run
well.
dry,
The
and
well
apparently,
We're
it
getting
refilled
a little
back up. Yeah, yeah. We needed some laughs.
yeah, this is a lot of content so far. I'm a little scared by this.
I don't know.
So did you bring
Might
her
turn
some
it off.
Visine in the morning?
I didn't bring. No, I didn't even necessarily feel that bad for her. It was more about me. But
Oh, yeah.
It's all about
It's
you.
You
all
know, the
about
problem that you guys, those especially the younger youth workers,
Yes.
it's not a problem. It's just a new generation.
Oh, yeah.
You don't get to. I mean, we could have full on beat downs in
Right.
the early years. I
Yeah.
mean, still my favorite gag is to go into somebody's tent and shine the flashlight in their eyes,
yes,
and then they take their hands and they cover their eyes, and then you drop the flashlight.
Yeah, until you did that to Jamin Goggin.
oh, I had that happen to me
That's
multiple
awesome.
times. I never caught on to. I never remembered the bit
Yeah,
until the
so
moment that it hit me.
Flashlight hits the eyes, the hands go up, the
Flashlight's dropped.
flashlights drop.
The mid region is unprotected,
The testes swell.
Vulnerable. And
and Natalie just laughed.
all right, we're safe.
That's
if
a
Natalie
medical
laughs,
term.
we're safe.
My last one
Last one.
is
There's lots of other things I could have said.
consistent volunteer communication. I put. I had a segment of our volunteers that I was responsible for, and I felt time and time again, like it obviously isn't a strength of mine, so it's a fight, but I just feel I was not consistent communicating to them, and the big picture is, relationships are weakened, and when you have less communication, it's just created. It wasn't like any big division or big frustration, but I should have done a better job communicating to them. There we go, 5.
Awesome.
Good. Good. Well, I know that I have many, and I've written about many of them in Purpose Driven Youth Ministry and in your first 2 years, but here are the biggies for me, and actually both you guys, Jake and Josh, touched on. I think in the early years of youth ministry, I put programs ahead of people, and
Sorry. I just want to make sure his mic's on. I don't hear Doug anymore.
Natalie, here's Doug.
Do you hear Doug?
Okay, great. Sorry.
Thanks, Josh.
This is important. This is when you're going to start talking, so I want to make sure.
People just fast forwarded to right
Well,
now.
just zip, 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 zip. Doug's talking. Okay, here
You're
we
going to
go.
ask him for a raise later today?
Yeah, actually, if you wouldn't know, that's fine.
um,
Budget
You know,
time.
you do sound a little distant, though.
I
Can you
sound a
turn
little
it up
distant.
A little bit?
Oh.
Yeah.
I could try.
Doug's got a lot on his mind.
That's just his voice.
All right, sorry. Go. I didn't.
All right.
I just,
No, that's
I
right.
want to make
That
sure people heard you.
Early on, I think put programs before people. That feeling paid to, when I showed up with you just a second ago and saying that, we got to put on a quote unquote product. That's what I felt the pressure of, and oftentimes it was at the expense of kids. So I'd be all excited about them bringing their friends to the product that we put on.
Yeah.
And at the expense of really caring about that kid. So sometimes I was ticked at kids because they didn't bring their friends rather than celebrating the kids that came.
Right.
So I think I learned that early on.
That's good.
Maybe because of a comment, something as subtle as a kid saying, "You care more about the program than us." Something like that. Some verbal
Oh,
slap in
wow.
the face, and went,
see,
"Oh, wait a
things.
second. You're right. I do, and I think there's a problem with that."
I think that hurts a little bit
Yeah.
first.
The other mistake that I feel like has led to the thing that I'm probably most proud of spiritually is that when kids graduated from our ministry, they were so excited to come to the weekend or the midweek or something like that. We created a good show for them. And when I was doing, my kind of first time I'm on my own in the early 80s of really running a program, the only models out there that were successful models that I knew of were the show models.
Right.
Crystal Cathedral had, 700 kids coming on a Wednesday night. Then they had to open a Thursday night because they had another 700. And Willow Creek had all these big numbers. And what they were doing was the smoke and mirrors and the show. That, back then, slideshows and slideshows and
Wizards.
competition and breaking your group. And so, as a young youth worker, you go, what's working? You go, look there. I fly out to Willow Creek and, I open up a door, and it had all their props in it, and their prop room was bigger than my youth room. And so we were able to steal that idea of creating the show the kids wanted to be at, but when they graduated from the ministry, they graduated from the show. And that's where I came up with the idea of the habits and said, if we graduate kids from our ministry, they need to develop spiritual habits so they could grow on their own. And that has been a drum that I've been beating for years. That's
great, but that originates out of a failure.
Yeah.
You can turn it into a positive,
yeah.
but there's a generation of students that you failed in a way.
Yeah, absolutely.
You lay a whole generation at Doug's feet.
Lost forever.
I'm small time. I got a couple students in my ministry. Doug's got a
He's
generation.
the youth pastor of the universe, so there you go.
Well, you know what? It's fun.
Doug, you really screwed that generation.
Talk about a failure.
There is a redeeming element every once in a while. I went back and spoke at the church that I was at for 11 years, and some of the kids that were in that era, to now see them as adults with kids who were walking with the Lord, and you go, oh, good, we didn't totally screw them up,
Right.
And I'm sure there are many that that aren't as well.
Sure.
I would say a third failure, and I would put these first ones in what I would call focus or philosophy, is parents. That I think early on that I viewed parents more like a soccer coach. Just give me your kid, pick them up after practice.
Right.
And didn't really view them as essential players in the development of students. And I would even say, I've been at Saddleback 15 years now. I would even say my early years at Saddleback didn't do that as well. I think when for me, the flip got switched when, I'm dropping Tori off, my first child, at Sunday school.
Yeah.
And going, okay, who are these people?
Right.
I'm giving my loved one here. And, my eyes were opened a little bit to, what we do with kids, how we talk with kids, how we talk about the family.
Right.
Then, 10 years ago, the whole family-based, Mark DeVries writes this book, Family-Based Youth Ministry, and it wakens up people's eyes going, gosh, that's right, kids are spending a lot more time with family. So I think, early on, I wish I would have known what I know now. And I can't, how many times have we all said that? I wish I would know.
Well, that's part of the cycle of youth ministry. Those people get out of youth ministry before they get to that point of fatherhood, or they get to that point of, where they have a family of their own, or whatever.
Yeah.
To start to see some of the deeper things.
And if you have to deal with junior high students, their brains don't even function. I just started working with junior hires in the last year. You could tell them like that you can eat a grape, and they won't know it unless they go and talk to their parents first. So you have to talk to their parents, otherwise you're done.
Well, yeah, and it's more than just even talking to the parents. It's more than having good communication, which is part of it.
Right.
Like when I wrote Purpose Driven Youth Ministry, I really had to think through what are we doing with parents, and I kind of put this level thing in. Kind of level 1 is communicate, level 2, whatever these levels were, and really trying to figure out how do you partner with parents. We got so many screwed up girls in our ministry who just have knucklehead dads that, how do we help dads learn how to be dads and, learn how to be spiritual leaders? And
Indian princesses.
that's a key.
Yes.
That is a key.
Princess Leia.
Anyway, I would say then the leadership stuff, kind of one of the things Josh said is, I talk about a lot, and it is kind of the thesis of my book, What Matters Most, is the whole idea of time and margin and you marry the youth ministry, and youth ministry is never done, and there's always more to do, and you always feel the pressure that you could do more. And I think early on in my ministry, I married my ministry, and even simple things like telling Kathy I'd be home at 6, but not showing up till 6:45, and saying to her that the kid that I saw in the parking lot was more important than you. Those types of things.
Did you really say that?
No, but that's what it says.
That's what it said.
Yeah.
Well,
when I say I'm going to be there at 6, and then she's got
no,
dinner.
I
Because if you really
understand
said
it,
that-
but
Yeah.
I mean, there's idiot moments that I've had too. I didn't say that, but I would have been excited if you had
Yeah.
said
Now,
that.
if we wanted to do like dumb things you've said in marriage, that'd be.
Oh, that's
that'd
a
be
Next week's show, everybody.
Yeah, we need to bring in our.
We-
And
no,
Nat-
and
Natalie
we
can
wouldn't
come
even
back on
remember
that
the best ones.
yeah. Natalie would have some great ones on that too, I'm sure.
Actually, would.
I would say another leadership deal is me. What the result of me doing everything or feeling like I have to do everything, I bottleneck the youth ministry. And what I've come to now say and believe is that when your ministry stops advancing, either in spiritual growth or numerically, that you have bottlenecked it at you, meaning that you're not releasing pieces and portions of the ministry to other people. And I feel like I've bottlenecked on ministry many times where, once I let go of something, even as difficult as it was to let go of, it kind of opened up a new artery for growth.
Interesting.
And those, it's always hard to let go of those things. So those are the biggies. I put on their spiritual health. I think early in my ministry, one of the failures is I was more concerned about youth ministry health than my own spiritual health.
I think everybody could probably relate to that one, at least in seasons. I mean, I was thinking of my list going, that's kind of a big one that I missed too. Was just the day-to-day connection with God. I mean, that you start PDYM talking about the power of God.
Yeah.
That's typically a big failure too. It's just to go back to, it starts there.
Yeah. See, I look at Matt, and one of the things I respect about Matt, I don't think you ever sacrificed that. Would you say in 10 years that we worked together?
No, I mean, no, because I just didn't care that much about the ministry to.
You care about your own spiritual health, but youth ministry.
Yeah. No, I mean, I in the 10 years I've been there, other than Doug, I would put my dedication to the ministry. I'd guarantee no one was more dedicated to the ministry than I was, but yeah, definitely not you. I don't know why you pointed at yourself.
Just looking for a little affirmation.
I definitely was dedicated, but yeah, I mean, I think that's just something that was ingrained to me with my dad. I used to go to church a couple times a week, and he just said, "Dude, you're gonna burn out." And I go, "Really? Well, I better learn how to not burn out."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and speaking of not learning how to burn out, we ran out of tape last week.
Oh gosh.
And we're not going to run out of tape this
We're
week.
close, though,
We need
huh?
to talk eHarmony next week.
Next week, I can link to it.
I
Let's just link to
I
it.
do
Fine.
want to encourage people that are of our PDYM friends to go to pdymcommunity.com and check out
Yes.
our national. We have a national lunch happening soon.
Yeah.
We're doing some.
50 locations all over the U.S.
I shot a video
be
training the
cool.
other day,
Yeah,
and
cool.
we're gonna show that, and so pdymcommunity.com.
There you go.
And check that out about our national community lunches.
Fantastic.
All
This
right.
has been a good show. A lot of
Yeah,
content today.
yeah, Matt, you're quiet.
If
You're
you're
sleepy.
Are you tired?
He was up late watching
He's
the
just
movie.
bogged down by his failures.
definitely,
just weighing on.
definitely.
We're going to run out of tape.
Well, if you have an eHarmony account, you should search for Josh Griffin.
Yeah,
and
let's
send
say
a
that.
screenshot into the show. And
All right,
Yes.
and we have podcast at simplyyouthministry.com if you want to send in
Send
your
us an email.
questions,
Yeah.
and we will see you next week.
Bye.
Or you could phone call us.
949.